Can you tell us a little bit about your religious upbringing, maybe what you appreciate about it or what you don't appreciate about it?
Yeah. So growing up, in the states, with the in the Haitian community, you're either Catholic or Protestant. There's no like, well, I mean, things may change now, obviously, but there's no like, there's not really much with atheism or Muslim. You're either Christian or Christian, and even back in Haiti, Catholicism is so ingrained that even the Protestants, they have to get baptized in a Catholic church. So everyone's Catholic. You're either like in full communion or not in full communion, but everyone like off the bat is Catholic. They use, when it comes to education, they use the French system of education. So that's what I grew up in. I grew up largely homeschooled. My sister, and my brother, the three of us, because my older sister, she's, you know. So by the time that I was studying homeschool, she was already done with high school. So we were homeschooled for a large portion of our education. So it was really religious education. It was fully Catholic. Morning starts with prayer, daily mass, rosary, Bible study, even the science books. It was titled "Exploring Creation with Physics," "Exploring Creation with chemistry." So the Catholic faith is pretty much, it's in my blood at this point. Like it's, and the love of it that I have, even organically, because obviously as you grow, you go through periods of times where you start to question, like, hey, what is this all about? But yeah, I've never lost the trust and confidence that I have in my Catholic faith.
That's awesome. Any experience with voodoo or anything like that? No?
Me personally, thanks be to God, no. But my my parents have had some experiences. I have some family friends that have had experiences where someone got kidnapped, and they brought them back. Like they kidnapped them for 24 hours, brought them back. But when, and they were like a child at this time. But ever since then, they were like very like still and very quiet, almost zombie like. And it wasn't until they took her to a priest, and the priest was like, I think someone did something on her and did a special blessing, and she went back to normal. So there's some crazy stuff, but I think that's the safest story that I can tell on here.
Oh yeah, I have stories from Haiti too. They call, like, we would call him the Walking Dead, right? It's a very, you gotta go there to experience this and see it to even know what we're talking about. We were actually pew pewed at in Haiti, so we had a fantastic experience in your home country. Yeah, I can show you the car. It's full of I can say that, holes. Let me pull it. Holes, pew pew holes. We still have pictures of it. But yeah, okay. So you were raised in a Christian family, and I call you Christians. I know that there are people out there, talks and other idiots who don't think the Catholics are Christians.
Wait,
Um,
Christians?
well, there, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But has the Christian life always been a bed of roses? Like no struggles, no doubts, no failures, or any
Um,
moments of weaknesses, maybe?
I mean, yeah, for sure. There's definitely been moments. Let's say like obviously when things went bad, financially, and even on a personal level with like family members or even family friends that have passed away. And even in my personal life with like like little things, like maybe like even heartbreaks, or even something as big as like being in a big position and losing that job. And there's moments in times when I'm like, hey, I mean, I've been here. I've been here I've been with you forever. I've been rocking with you forever. um you know why is this happening? So there's been some times where I've questioned, but not, I think I've always defaulted to just trusting in God at the end of the day. Even if there's times where I'm like, I've been in my car in the parking lot of a church just screaming at God. I've been in that position. But I think Yeah, there's never been a moment where it's been like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this. I don't think I've ever had that moment.
How do you trust in God? Like, how do you overcome situations like that? For example, say losing your job or going through something that's very stressful.
Yeah, I think whenever something bad happens, obviously the initial reaction is like, yo, what the heck? You get a little upset. But once I calm down, I remember all the good things that's happened. And obviously all of the good vastly outweighs the bad. And then I remember that I believe in a good God, and the whole Bible story we all know. We don't have to go through it. But then I also remember that the evil one exists. So there's always going to be the evil one that's always trying to attack God's people. I also remember the story of Job. That's something that always comes back to mind whenever I go through some hardships. So that's always something that comes, and that helps me to overcome it.
So, so in what ways then does, like you already mentioned, the scriptures going back to the stories of the Bibles and whatnot? Are there any other examples that you can give us how you found that Jesus gives you peace in moments where you can't find peace by yourself?
Yeah, there's a myriad of them. One example would be with the apostles. One would be like Thomas, when he in John chapter 20, when he failed to believe. With Peter when he was walking on the water with Jesus. We even have in the Old Testament the things that a lot of the judges went through. One that comes to mind is the story of Samson and the story of David. Samson specifically, because yeah, he was a chosen of God, and he made some very unwise decisions, as we can all agree. Um, and he went through that hardship, and even in that hardship that he caused himself by his own disobedience, God still was like, hey, this last moment, I got you. Similar with David. David did everything right for the beginning of the story, being loyal to King Saul and all of that. And then when Saul turns against him, and basically the entire kingdom of Israel, because he's the king, turns against him, David finds himself alone. In his solitude, he finds his way. He still goes to God, and God takes him from being alone with no support to becoming the most famous king of all of Israel. So I think stories like that really help, you know, remind me of just how good God can be in our lives, and it always reinforces my faith.
How important is alone time? I mean, Jesus speaks about this, right? Going into the secret place and praying. So I'm thinking maybe specifically in your case, did you have any moments like that, spending alone time with the Lord, where Jesus became more important? I hate to say more important to you, but more personal to you in a way, you know?
Yeah, I think this is a thing that happens with a lot of Christians, especially those who grow up in the faith. They, I think we can all agree, they start off with as children like, "Yay, Jesus!" Then, like towards their, middle to high school, they kind of just go through the motions. Then, sometime during their early adult years, they're like, "Ah, I do this thing." I think for me, this was a moment, I want to say, this is like 2017, so I just graduated high school. I don't remember what the situation was. I think it was maybe like some kind of girl or something. I don't know. Basically, I was in a very low point, and I was like, you know what? Let me try to like take God more seriously. Right? Let me just like sit in this moment, because I felt very down, very sad. Um, at the time, it was my lowest point. Looking back, I'm like, wow, you had more to come. But in that moment, I was just sitting in the church chapel, and I was just kind of just sitting there, just staring at the tabernacle, like, well, I mean, I'm here. Um, and then I didn't hear a voice then, but I definitely felt an inner peace. I really felt that presence of God that I think I took for granted. I can't say that before then I never felt it, but I can definitely say that was the moment that was like, yeah, I'm really taking this seriously. Like, yeah, I'm here. We're locked in now.
Do you think that there are moments like this? And by the way, thank you, people. There's a lot of people sharing the live, and I see Lutherans tapping this. Well, here's an Eastern Orthodox tapping the screen. So thank you for tapping. Let's get this up to 20,000 likes. We're going to talk theology here in a little bit. I'm gonna ask a few more questions about just Joseph's personal journey with Christ, and just talk about Jesus. So thank you all for joining us here. But I was gonna ask, are there moments like these, like low point moments, right, that kind of draws you into wanting to become a more devout Christian, or even maybe that was even, I don't know, what was your well, answer that first, and then I'm gonna ask you about what drew you into doing apologetics.
Yeah. What did it for me was, yeah, these personal times with Jesus, but also around this time I've always been very involved in faith. I think I'm 26 now, so since the age of 7, when I had my first communion, I was doing something in the church, whether altar serving, lecturing, which is like reading the readings, helping with the collection, religious education. I think the only thing I haven't done in the Catholic faith as a layperson that I can do is be a Eucharistic minister, which means to help the priest administer the Eucharist. That's the only thing that I haven't done, and I refuse to do for now. But I think the 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 point that really cemented it for me when it came to taking my faith seriously was, yes, that moment in the chapel, but also I went on a youth retreat, and and this was one of the first ones that I went to, and it was just a bunch of old teens and stuff like that. And this is my first time there. I'm like, it's probably gonna be like, just a hangout for Catholics and for Catholic kids. I thought it might have been a little bit cringy, that whole Christian youth thing that we all know. But it wasn't, and it started off like that a little bit, that icebreaker, that really awkward getting to know each other moment. But after that, there was this moment where they did what was called praise and worship. And know many of you guys you may have heard that, with that moment where they dim the lights in the room, and they're just playing music. And this is something I never experienced before up until that moment. And everyone's like playing music, and they have the lyrics up on the screen, and just all of us just young ins. And at first it's weird, but then the song Oceans comes on, and I know you guys know Oceans, right? Whatever. Oceans comes on, and they're like, oh, if you're sitting next to someone, put your arm around them, and if they're crying, comfort them. I'm like, crying? Why would they be crying? And then the person who's leading starts talking about the grace of God, the love of God, and how we go through different things in life. We're all at different stages in life. And then someone starts to cry, and I'm like, wow, it's really hitting them. Then I'm listening to the words, and then it just hits me. It just hits me, that moment is like, whoa, okay, yeah, I really feel the presence of God here, and I'm sharing it with all these people. That's something I hadn't done. I hadn't experienced before. Like, yeah, you pray with your family and you feel that love there, but with other people that you don't know, random people that you don't know, and they're all hugging each other. Some of these are people who've met each other for the first time that weekend. They're holding on to each other. They're telling each other, I love you, brother. I love you, sister. I'm here for you. That kind of stuff. That one was really powerful because I could see the work of Christ in others. To me, it reminded me of Pentecost. To me, and in that moment, I was like, yeah, that's it.
Remind me, was this in a Catholic church, or where was this at?
Yeah, it was a Catholic church.
I grew up. I grew up in a certain Protestant tradition where everybody just thought that what they used to say is like, Catholics are unalived. There's no life in the Catholic. They are so traditional and dead. So you're saying that you can experience Jesus in the Catholic Church?
Contrary to popular belief, yes.
And by the way, people in the I do these conversations right with Eastern Orthodox, Lutherans. I had an Anglican priest on the other day. I talked to all faith traditions, even the Coptic. And people go, wow, why are you talking to a Catholic? Why are you talking to an Anglican? Why are you talking? Well, I talk to everyone, right? It's Jesus spoke to people, and so that's the point here of this discussion is not if we should venerate icons or if I should talk more to Lutherans or whatnot. The point here is talking about Jesus. So behave in the comment section, everybody. Act like you're a follower of Jesus. All right. Well, that's beautiful. Before I forget, by the way, you had mentioned in a private conversation between you and I that you had some encounter or something with Mary. What was that about?
Yeah, this is not something that I've told. Honestly, I don't think I've done it in this capacity in ever. Really, I think I've had private conversations, maybe on a live where there was like 5 people. But basically, what had happened is in Haiti, and this has not been approved by the Catholic Church this yet. So this is why I don't talk about it as often. But in Haiti, there is a nun. Well, she's not in Haiti anymore because of all the insecurity. But there was a nun who there is a nun who is a visionary, and she gets visions, private visions from the Blessed Virgin Mary, and things like that. And there's a whole like small society about it called the Apostles of Mary. And my mother is part of that. A lot of members of my mom's side, they're part of that as well. My uncle, who's a bishop, he's part of that. A couple of my aunts and uncles, they're part of that as well. And so I was raised in that environment. And in 2010, as we talked about a little bit earlier, there was that earthquake. So that year, it hit the area that the nun was in, so they had to leave. They had to relocate. So they visited family in Canada to be safe. And then there was a family friend that was going over to Haiti, and my mom was like, "Hey, stop by the house, the convent, because this lady who's receiving visions, she's a nun. I don't know if I mentioned that. She's a nun. So visit the convent where she's at, and just where she was at, and just take a picture just for memorabilia, that kind of thing." So she takes a picture and she sends it to my mom, and my mom was like, "Hey, Joseph, come on, kids, like take a look at this." And we're all looking at the picture, and then she zooms in, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm guessing that's the nun, because there's a silhouette of a lady in white, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess it's the nun." My mom's looking at me like, "What are you talking about? She's not there. She's in Canada." And then I'm like, "She's literally right there. What are we talking about?" And so my mom calls up the friend that took the picture. I was like, "Hey, was there anyone in the convent?" I was like, "No, it's been closed for months now. There's no one there." And my mom was like, "Was there anyone in the window?" I was like, "No." And my mom was like, "Okay, can you look at your picture and see if there's anyone there?" She looks at her picture. There's no one there. And then, but we can see it on the picture that my mom showed me. And my mom calls the nun who's a visionary and says, "Hey, my son sees a picture." And then the nun says, "Oh, that's the Blessed Virgin Mary." So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." But I mean, I was like 10, 11. So I'm like, "Oh, this is cool." But also like, can I go play video games now? Right. It's kind of like a weird headspace. So that was the first time. And we just kind of like kept it personal at that point. Then in 2012, there was a big celebration that they were doing in Haiti to commemorate the 100th vision that the nun was going to receive. And so, we all went. It's like, okay, this is going to be a great thing. And then the Blessed Virgin Mary at the convent, there was a moment at night where she appeared at the roof. And so there's beautiful lights. It's hard to describe, but they were like pastel bright lights, but they weren't too piercing. So it's like a peaceful, inviting light. and everyone else just sees light, and I look up and I'm like, oh, I see the lady, and like me, I'm thinking I'm gonna go up to the roof. I'm gonna go see her. So I go up and I pass by a friend of mine's room, and I was like, hey, wake up. Like, I was going to tell him what I was going to do. He didn't wake up. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it by myself. So I get up to the roof, to the top floor where she was at. And all I had to do was just turn the corner, and like I would be there. But I don't know what happened. I just chickened out and I just didn't do it. Probably one of my biggest regrets in life, I'm not gonna lie, that I didn't turn that corner. But I guess it wasn't God's will, or whatever the case may be. But I wish to this day that I did turn that corner. But yeah, I mean, that was the first time that I saw the Blessed Virgin Mary. It was in a picture, and the second time was live in action. So it was very, very powerful. And I think from then on, it's like, yeah, there's no way, no matter what, there's really no way I can actually leave after experiencing something like that. So
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say. When people, you can't deny experiences, right? It's it is what it is. People are asking in the comment section, or they are commanding you to show the picture.
I don't have the picture with me because I'd have to get my mom and be like, hey, can you send me the picture? Again, this is not something that I talk about a lot because I know like people hear about experiences. They're like, no, and I'm like, you know what? Let me not like give you.
And I actually appreciate that with the Catholic Church, that things like this has to be confirmed. You can't just have crazy people running around saying, "Oh, I had an experience of this and that." You know, no, it has to be confirmed. I think that is a huge problem with evangelical Protestantism. You know, people claiming encounters and whatnot, and they're just cuckoo.
Yeah. And I really think that sometimes, as Christians, we have encounters, and a lot of times it could just be for us. Because there's many times where Jesus is like, when he heals someone, he's like, "Go, but don't tell anyone that I healed you." It's like, "Hey, this for you." So I think that is sometimes the case where, hey, this is for us. This is for our private. It's for our own edification, where we get closer to God. It's not something that we have to tell. That's why I've only told people that I'm like super close with, like family and maybe a couple of friends. But not a lot of people know about this. Well, I guess 55 people know now.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. I actually have a yeah, I guess you can say a similar story. It actually has to do with the intercession of, well, it wouldn't be saints because it's not a canonized saints, but intercession of, well, yeah, I guess you can say saints, because in Christ we are saints. We've been perfected in Christ. But I have a very, very strange story, and I don't even want to share it because I think it's for me, you know.
Yeah.
But having been a Christian for, I don't know how old you are now, but you've been a Christian your whole life. What would be the most beautiful thing about the Christian faith?
The beautiful thing about the Christian faith, as a Catholic for 26 years now, I would say the ability to have a personal relationship with the creator of the universe. And I think people, and maybe even some Christians, I think they may forget just what that entails. It's like, oh yeah, Jesus great. Oh yeah, God great. I'm like, are you really thinking about what you're saying? This is the creator of the universe. Everything that we see in nature, this being created, he doesn't owe you anything. Yet he wants to have a loving relationship with you. He wants to be your father. He wants to be your friend. He wants to be your brother. He wants to have a strong bond with you. And I think that is probably one of the most important things about the Christian faith, because some atheists will say, "Oh, you're just afraid of going to hell." I'm like, I don't care about hell. I care about having a relationship with God. Like, why am I thinking about hell? That's in the back of my mind. So obviously I don't want to go there, but that's in the back of my mind. It's not because it's hell that I don't want to go there. It's because that's the place that my God is not.
Yeah, I mean, you've come to discover who Christ is, and so therefore there's no fear in love. We're fully focused on God. We are united to God, right?
Yep, yep.
Sorry to cut you off. You continue.
No, that was it. That was pretty much it.
So being able to have a personal relationship with the creator of the universe, it sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, as a Catholic, then I have some questions um, about the Catholic tradition. What specifically within Catholicism, maybe in the Mass or practices such as adoration, confession, whatnot? Is there anything in particular maybe that uh, affects or impacts your connection with Christ there?
Um, it's always gonna go back to the Eucharist. It's always gonna go back to the Eucharist, whether I'm receiving it at Mass or I'm in front of it during adoration. It's This is Jesus there. This is that Creator of the universe that's there in a piece of bread. And it's so mind-boggling when you think about it. When you really sit down to think about what it is you are looking at. This is God, the God of the universe, again, the creator of the universe, all this in the form of a piece of bread that you can sit in front of and just be in his presence. This is a taste of heaven on earth, because the kingdom is wherever the king is. Jesus is the king of heaven. Jesus is there. So in that moment, you are, in a way, you are in heaven, in front of God. Obviously, in an imperfect way, because you still got sin and that whole thing. But you are pretty much in heaven, in front of God, in that moment, and you can tell him anything. Like whatever is in your heart, you can just talk to him. You can tell him anything that even you wouldn't tell your closest friend or your therapist or your pastor or your priest. The things that you're afraid to tell them, you can tell to God. And I think that right there is what that's what makes it that's what makes it the truth for me. That's what makes it real.
What has kept your faith strong? Because we were talking here just earlier about ups and downs and going through maybe sometimes heartaches or stress. And so I want to know kind of from you what has kept your faith strong? What has helped you on your journey with Christ? Is it prayer practices? Is it reading books? Is it just going to church? Obviously, it's God. Maybe it's all of it. But just walk us through that a little bit. How to, you know, keep your faith alive.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have a very fancy answer for you, but yeah, it's pretty much all of the above. Um, I think I think it's like this: when you fall in love with someone, um, and many in the audience may relate to this. When you fall in love with someone, even though you have your ups and downs, either in your personal life or with them, whether it be like with little arguments or stuff like that, when you fall in love with someone, the only place that you ever really want to be is with that person. And I think for me, it's a case that I've just fallen in love with God. And I can't imagine being anywhere else except in his presence.
Someone in the comments mentioned, and by the way, guys, thank you so much for tapping. Let's get this up to 20,000 likes and ask your questions in the comment section here. I'm gonna keep an eye on the comments if you have any questions to Joseph now. But someone mentioned in the comments here one of my favorite Bible verses, which says, "Looking to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith." Right. So seeing Christ for who He is, that's when Christ writes the faith story on our hearts. Right. The more we connect with, align our thoughts with Jesus, the more we see Him, the more we become like Him. Right. So I love the way that you put that there. That God is doing this for you, right? He's keeping your faith strong, and the more you walk with Him, the more you grow in that faith. Um, but so maybe you can continue on that note. Like, how has your relationship with God changed for the better? How has your relationship become more beautiful over time with God?
Yeah, I'd say my relationship with God has grown to a point where I start to make distinctions between the relationships that I have with the Trinity itself. So God, I obviously he's our Father, so I see him as like not necessarily the old man in the clouds, but kind of like a strong father figure that you expect to see. Someone like I don't know, like I can't think of like a pop culture reference for like a strong like dad type.
Take me as a reference. A strong bearded man.
Strong man who's your father, who you can go to, and who's not gonna be, and who will give you that tough lesson. He'll be like, "Yeah, listen, you messed up, and you're gonna learn from this, but you also know that it comes from a place of love." The relationship that I have with the person of the Son, Jesus Christ, is that as an older brother, right? The older brother that we all the perfect older brother that we all wish we had, right? He's your confidant, he's your friend, he's your brother. Because obviously we have the Blessed Virgin Mary, and we have God, who is the first person of the Trinity, who is our Father. So he is the perfect older brother, right? Equal in one sense in the fact that you guys are brothers, but he is still your older brother. He still has authority over you, and that's where the God part comes in as well. So seeing the idea of disappointing my older brother Jesus is something that is like I can't do that. I can't let my brother down. I can't let him down. I have to live up to what he wants from me. And the Holy Spirit to me has always been that voice inside that's guiding us to do what is right for me. It's always been, hey, this is the right thing to do. Big bro is going to want you to do that. Dad's going to want you to do that. So you should probably do that right thing. So that's kind of how I see, that's kind of how I compartmentalize my relationship with God to the degree that I'm in right now, where I can form a different relationship with with the distinct persons of the Trinity.
That's very unique, actually. It's not often that I hear people talk about Jesus as brother. Like, it's very rare. But actually, scriptures talk like that. The book of Hebrews says that Jesus is not ashamed to call us brothers. So he's our constant companion, right? Um, what's happening? Well, just having a conversation here with my brother Joseph about his journey with Christ. We're gonna get into theology here in 1 second. Just getting to know him and his story and what Christ means to him. So I'll ask you more questions about Jesus, but the church, right? What is the church?
Um, the church for me, right? Because we can argue again with scripture and church fathers all day, but the church it's an institution. It's not just the building, and it's not just the people. It is the communion that we have in Christ with one another. It is the ability to worship God in communion with others. Kind of thinking back to that moment where I was in that youth retreat, and that Pentecost type feeling. This is the church for me. It's a united people under God, obviously following the instructions of Christ and living out our days and helping each other grow in our faith and love in Jesus Christ.
Pentecost feeling, Pentecost experience. It's unique. You know, I had a person commenting on one of Reformed Pastor's videos. I don't know if you know Reformed Pastor, but I'm doing a live discussion with him, and someone said, "Beware of Jacob. He's very disingenuous. He's gonna clip what you say, and he's gonna." I might clip that and twist it into saying that you're Pentecostal, Joseph.
You want me to start speaking in tongues or something?
But it's beautiful. The church is important. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the church means to you and how the church helps shape you into a follower of Jesus.
Yeah, I would say the church is as much a family as well as being part of a kingdom. It's like we are in a royal family. Right? We have the kingdom aspect with God as our king, and we're all princes and things like that. And we're furthering the goal of the kingdom, which is to spread the gospel. But it's also a family in the aspect that wherever you go, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have had this experience, wherever you guys go, let's say like you're in like a new city or like you're in an airport traveling alone, and you, at least as a Catholic, so I'll speak from the Catholic perspective, when I see someone with like a rosary and they're doing like the sign of the cross, I'm like, that's a Catholic. That's a brother right there. I can recognize that. And I know all of you guys may have this experience. If you ever go to a new place, let's say you're a French speaker and you're going to the States for the first time, and you hear someone speak French, you're like, I hear my people. Or like you're a Spanish speaker and you go to like Canada and you're walking through like you hear someone speak Spanish, you're like, oh, I hear my people. So I think that camaraderie, that silent agreement that we are brothers, and that if I need help, by the grace of God, we can help each other. I think that is something that's definitely shaped me in wanting to help others also, and helping to teach others. That's what drives my desire to be a teacher, both professionally and in the religious education side, in the church. So I think that's one of the ways that it shaped me, to view the world as as family, pretty much.
Is that, by the way, what got you into apologetics? Just teaching, or was it something else? Just a passion, maybe to talk about Jesus online, or how did you get into that?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I used to do lives where I just like talked about like pop culture or music, singing and stuff like that. And then I think I just was scrolling through a live, and I just saw someone like talking about Christianity, and then I was like, oh, like just talking in the comments, like, hey, I love God too. I was like, yeah, I'm Catholic, and then someone was like, Catholics aren't Christians. I was like, what? This is literally the first time I've ever heard this in my life. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I saw a lot of people saying Catholics aren't Christian. I'm like, okay, let me test something out.
You're like,
So
I thought I was Christian.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, this is news to me. So my first ever live, the prompt was Catholics are Christians, prove me wrong, right? So I'm like, you think I'm not, so I need you to bring the evidence, because I don't know what's going on here. And so it's pretty much started from there, and people, a lot of misconceptions, like the intercession of the saints. That's like the average one. Blessed Virgin Mary, confession, priesthood, and stuff like that. And it really forced me to dig in my bag as a catechist, to prove that I'm a Christian. Like I've never had to prove that Catholics are Christians before, so it was a really weird experience. And so since then, I want to say maybe 2.5 years ago now. That's when I switched it up and I said, okay, you guys clearly have misunderstandings. Let's not make this like a crazy debate type thing. So I'm Catholic. Ask me anything, and it's been that since.
You know, the funny thing about a lot of Protestants saying you're not Christian is that they can use that same logic and saying that everybody around them are not Christian. Because what they're saying is, I don't agree with the invocation of the saints or a certain Marian dogma, and therefore you are not Christian. But then they can turn around and say that, say, like a Baptist can say Presbyterians are not Christian, Lutherans are not Christian, Pentecostals are not Christian. Like they can literally do that with every single Protestant denomination because they can find two or three or five, 10 disagreements with them, right? So, like, what constitutes a Christian? What's a Christian to you, Joseph?
I mean, a Christian is like it's very basic. It's going to be one who follows Jesus Christ and aims to be Christ-like. That's really what it boils down to. Now, obviously, there's extra steps like you got to be baptized, be a part of the sacraments, go to church and stuff like that. But at the core of it, it's you have this trust and confidence in Jesus Christ. You establish the love with Him, and you truly want to follow Him. That you truly want to follow Jesus Christ. You truly want to be a little Christ, which is what the history of the word Christian means, to be a little Christ, right? It started off as an insult, but we've obviously reclaimed this to be that we want to be Christ-like. So that's really what it means to be a Christian.
I love how it's just started with an insult and we just claim it. Said, yeah, that's us.
You guys want to be like Christ? I'm like, well, I mean, yeah.
How is following Jesus? How has that changed you? How you interact with people, how you view yourself and others?
Yeah, I think recognizing that Jesus Christ created everyone in His image, and that we are all meant to, because the purpose of humanity from God, and this is from the earlier versions of the Catechism, is to know, love, and serve God and be happy with Him in heaven. And me being a Christian, I love God, obviously. I want to get to know Him. I want to be happy with Him. But I also want to spread that. I don't want anyone to not experience the love of Jesus Christ. So I think that's what really motivates me to partake in doing my own little part in spreading the gospel, whether it be by debates or heated conversations, or just answering questions, or maybe doing like interviews with like a handsome young man with like a fancy beard or something like that. If that's the way that I can spread the gospel, that's enough for me. Like if from this conversation, one atheist or one person who's looking into Christianity but is unsure, if even one person comes to Christ from this conversation, I've done my job.
What can you say to such a person if there's someone watching here and he doesn't know much about, or she doesn't know much about Christianity, but she's been, considering what is Christianity, who is Christ, how do I become a Christian? Like, what do you say to such a person?
Oof, that is definitely a hard question. Because I usually like to take it, and I guess this is kind of the teacher in me. I like to take it person by person, because there's different reasons as to why different people may not believe. Maybe different experiences in the church have driven them away. And with that, I would say, okay, our faith is, it's not predicated on the actions of men. Our faith is predicated on God. So just because someone in whatever church mistreated you, then that's not an excuse to leave God, right? If I'm talking to an agnostic, someone who's unsure, God may believe, God may not believe, I can walk them through the conversation of, what a good God would look like and how we can see this exemplified in Christianity. If I'm talking to an atheist who is open, I would, I usually, with the atheists, I usually like to take them the slow route and give them like the history, the historical evidence for the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. And with that, they're like, okay, if Jesus is real, right, then obviously that retroactively confirms that the Old Testament is real, because Jesus meant to be the Messiah, blah, blah, blah. So if He is the Messiah, then obviously these things we can see how he fulfills these prophecies. So this would legitimize obviously the Old Testament, and obviously Jesus Christ. We've established that he's God. Let's see what Christianity is all about, and then we would go from kind of go from there. But yeah, there's different ways to approach it. I usually like to take it one on one because I don't think there's like um, a cookie cutter response to someone who's like, "Hey, I'm looking into it. What is the first step?" I don't think there is necessarily like a one a one size fit all type thing.
I want to continue asking you about what it means to follow Christ, but you mentioned God being good. And we had I taught a Bible study class. Actually, my wife had to go and do some volunteer work. She's a manager at Amazon, and so she took our son there for a family who has a 5-year-old who's suffering from cancer, right? And so I was teaching with my daughter in my lap. And I find that beautiful to just, be able, just spend time with your daughter, first of all, and then be able to talk about Jesus is just a great honor. But someone asked me in that class, said, how do you reckon with suffering, the problem of evil? And how is God good in the midst of that? Like, what's the solution to the problem of evil? And another, this is a humongous question, right? You can go, and I just laid out, different arguments that you can use. I don't know if there's a specific one that you usually appeal to, and I hate to say this, but obviously we can't spend the rest of the evening on this one question, but maybe just summarize how you deal with that.
Yeah. So a lot of the times people like to call it the logical problem with evil. And I think that is the first, ironically, problem that we run into. Because when it comes to the problem of evil, it's not a logical one. It usually is an emotional one. It usually comes from someone either directly or indirectly experiencing something bad that happens in their life, and they say, "Oh, this is bad. God is supposed to be good, and He's supposed to be all this stuff. So why doesn't He fix it?" And I think what it boils down to is we forget that yes, God is our Father and stuff like that, but we are the ones who have dominion over this planet. Right? If we read Genesis chapter 1, starting at verse 26, where it says that he created man in his image, and he says, let them have dominion over all the birds in the sky, the animals. And basically, we have dominion over this earth. So God left us in charge. So the problem of suffering and the problem of evil, it's not a problem with God. It's a problem with us. It's what we are doing. Because let's say, I remember this vividly. There was a mass pew that happened in the Catholic Church a couple months back, and a very disgusting person came on and was like, "Oh, God didn't, defend them." Well, sure, God could defend them, obviously, but think of what had to happen. Someone had to make the decision to do this thing. They had to go out and acquire this thing. They had all this prep to do it. They got up, they got in their car, they went and they did this thing. They are the ones who made this choice. God is not the one that made them do this thing. So I think we forget that we have dominion over this earth. We are responsible for our own actions. We can't blame God for every single bad thing that we or another person may do. If we blame God for everything, then we're taking our own responsibility out of it, and we're just not taking accountability of our actions.
Yeah. Okay. So it's an argument from free will.
And
Uh,
and again, largely from emotion as well. Because if I'm pretty sure you've had this conversation, the tone is usually coming from an emotional angle, not necessarily a logical one.
okay. So now following Jesus, you've already talked about kind of what it looks like, but if you can summarize what it means to be a follower of Jesus, and then I will ask a follow-up question on that.
Yeah, to be a follower of Jesus is to um, love him so much that you want to be like him. And in fact, we kind of see this happen organically with each other. Like if you an easy example is like a marriage or boyfriend girlfriend relationship. Over time, the girlfriend may take on the mannerisms of the boyfriend, or the boyfriend may even take on some mannerisms of the girlfriend. So we see that when we love someone, we try to be, we just organically start to act like them. So I think to be a follower of Christ is to emulate that same thought process. We love God, we love Christ, and we start to just act like him in different situations.
Okay. So being a follower of Christ is to become more Christ-like. So we evolve, we grow, right? Now the theology side of that, because my personal testimony is that I went through a time of deconstruction, which is a very dangerous time because you can lose your faith altogether and just throw the Bible under the bus or under the rug, however you call it. Or you can find a more beautiful faith where God becomes more precious to you. And I think everyone at the end of the day, regardless if you go through deconstruction or whatnot, having been a Christian your whole life, you obviously grow in your faith, right? I mean, even the Apostle Peter said that you grow in the knowledge and in the grace of Jesus. So our understanding of who Jesus is must, in some sense or the other, evolve for the better, right? If that makes sense. So
Yes.
I wonder if that has been true in your life, if you've grown in your understanding of Jesus. Maybe there were things that you used to believe about Jesus, you don't believe them anymore, or you've just found answers on things, or you can answer however you want, right? But how has Jesus become more precious to you?
Yeah, I would say in an ironic twist, these conversations on TikTok have definitely skyrocketed my growth in Jesus Christ. Being put on the defensive, being put in a role where I have to answer these questions. So I have to obviously learn more about my faith, right? If someone asks me where the Bible comes from, right? I'll be like, oh, okay. Well, the Bible comes from Council of Rome, 382, Council of Carthage and Hippo, like all these things. These are stuff that I've learned to be able to properly articulate over time, and these are things that have stuck with me. Obviously, repeating them, repetition. I would say one thing that has definitely helped me is learning the different connections between the New Testament and in the Old Testament, right? One that a lot of Christians, a lot of Catholics on here have heard me and other apologists run through is 2 Samuel chapter 6 as it correlates with Luke chapter 1, where it kind of points to Mary being the new Ark of the Covenant, right? You have the Ark of the Covenant being brought to the home of Obed Edom, which is in the hills of Judea. Mary goes up to the hills of Judea to see Elizabeth, stays there for 3 months, just like the ark stayed there for 3 months. The baby in Elizabeth's womb jumps for joy. David jumps for joy in front of the Ark of the Covenant. David says, how is it possible that the ark of the Lord comes to me? Elizabeth says, how can it be that the mother of my Lord comes to me? So it's very clear what Luke is doing here. He's making this typology between Mary being the new Ark of the Covenant and the old Ark of the Covenant that we see in 2 Samuel 6. And that's just one of like multiple other things, like Jesus being the Word of God. In Genesis chapter 3, it says, and the sound of God walked in the garden. It's like, oh, the sound of God. Oh, that's Jesus. Oh, that's something that not a lot of people pick up when they first go through it, and these little connections, like, yo, this really is a crazy love story that the Bible is. And I think diving deeper into the Word and obviously elevating your prayer life, it really helps you grow more and more and more in your faith as you learn more and more academically with the Word.
Beautiful. I have a follower of mine here in the comment section who goes by the name of Arius. You know, I have followers from Church of the East, Coptics, Eastern Orthodox, all kinds of Protestants, Catholics. Actually, mainly my followers nowadays, the majority of my followers are Catholics, believe it or not. But Arius here, and you can tell by the name that he is an Arian, but he said God doesn't change and cannot die. So obviously, well, that's the reason why God became incarnated, because the divine essence cannot die, right? And so that is not a change within the divine essence. The God man died, and thus you can say God died because what is true of one of the natures is true of the person, right? I don't know if you want to expound on that or just leave it. Like, would that be a good enough explanation for beginners or what?
Yeah, I mean, in addition, what it means to die is simply going to be a separation of the spirit from the body. So if Jesus can enter into the body, right? It's obviously his spirit, all that enters into the body. Then the idea of him leaving the body is not as far fetched as people may think. I think when they hear the term God died, in their head, they're like, oh, God ceased to exist or something. Like, no, that's not the case. It's just a separation of the spirit from the body. And we literally see this with Jesus on the cross. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And he breathed his last.
Yeah.
So I think, but yeah, you hit it right on the nail. It's like the two natures of Christ. Proper to his human nature, yes, we can say he died, and obviously Jesus the person died, so we say God died. But also proper to his divinity, obviously he cannot die. So yeah, you hit it right there.
And it's the same with Mary, the Theotokos, the mother of God, right? That she is the mother of God does not mean that she is now the source of the essence. Like, she's not source of divinity. She is the mother of Jesus, who is God, therefore mother of God. Like, it's so simple that when people ask these questions, you're like, just calm down a little bit and just think.
So I think it's so simple that people try to overcomplicate it. And I've noticed this because like someone will be like, "Oh, what do you mean by Mary's the mother of God?" Well, Jesus is God, Mary's the mother of Jesus, so Mary's the mother of God. Very quick, simple answer. And I think they kind of like expect like a 15-minute explainer with cross examination from the Bible and church fathers. I'm like, it's not that complicated. It's very simple, and I think that kind of sometimes it may rub people the wrong way when it's so simple. I don't know.
Usually what I do is just I take a piece of paper and I write 1 + 1 = 2. And then I put over top of Jesus plus Mary equals, Jesus, God, Mary, his mother. Put them together. Follow me now. You're right, man. I love your humor too, by the way. People, please follow Joseph. He puts out great content, and he's a great apologist. If you're not Catholic, go up there and ask him questions. Tap the screen. Let's get this to 30K likes and share this, because we're gonna get into the meat of it, the juicy questions, Jesus, the gospel, God, in just a minute. The gospel. Okay, we're still talking about developing, evolving, becoming more Christ-like. So how has your view of the gospel changed for the better?
Um, I don't know if I would say that my view of the gospel has changed. I'd say it's become easier to proper articulate it. Maybe that's probably that. If someone were to back in maybe like 2 years ago, someone would say, "What is the gospel?" I'd probably give them a more long-winded answer. Jesus Christ, giving like a brief synopsis on his birth and what he did. But I think if I were to summarize the gospel today, it is God, the creator of all things, loved us so much that even when we were in sin, he chose to redeem us and to reconcile us back to him, so that anyone who believes will not perish and go to hellfire, but have eternal life. So kind of like a slightly expanded version of John 3:16, for God to love the world, he sent his only begotten son, that anyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. That, to me, as overused as it is, really is a great summary of what the gospel is in its simplicity.
And and what does the rest the both the death and the resurrection of Christ do?
Yeah, so I would say that the penalty for sin, right, is death. And when Adam and Eve fell, dooming all of humankind, the gates of heaven were shut, and the only way that we could even think of entering into heaven would be to live a perfectly sinless life. Obviously, that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So Jesus' death, because he is God, so proper to he's offering his life. So the life of Christ, the life of the person of the Son, is what's being offered. So because he is an eternal person, he is able to, his death is able to cover the price of everyone, all of humanity. It's able to cover that cover charge. So if you want to enter the club and you don't got no money, you can enter into the club now, but you still need to wear the proper attire. And with the resurrection is Jesus, his glorified body, and subsequent ascension into heaven. In that moment, this is when he truly reconciles humanity back with God. His human nature, because we believe that he went into heaven body and soul, he is the first glorified body in heaven. So he's the one that paved the path for us. So without the death of Christ, there's no cover charge. And without the death of Christ, we have to pay this cover charge. And with the resurrection, we are now able to potentially, with our glorified bodies, enter into heaven. It's the reconciliation of all of humanity back with God. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about the death and resurrection of Christ.
Yeah, and I always put the emphasis on just what you said. That is the reconciliation. It's God reconciling humanity to himself, and not the other way around. It's not God being reconciled towards us as if he was our enemy. No, we were his enemy. We were hostile towards God. We had turned from God, so God reconciles us back to himself. And you mentioned something very important. It goes back to Mary being the Theotokos, right?
Yes.
Mary is, it's not that she was the Theotokos, but she is, because Jesus is still Theanthropos. He's still God-man. He has a glorified body, right? He didn't rise as a phantom. So it's divinity uniting humanity, right? So without God, Jesus being fully God, fully man, humanity and divinity is not united, and there is no reconciliation. And without that resurrection, there's no raising of humanity back towards God, right? So, do you want to add something to that, or
No, that was it. It's perfect.
um, okay? I'm gonna save. I have two follow-up questions on that, but I want to save them. I want to ask them at the very end, just to piss people off in the chat here. They want to hear them now, but I'm gonna save them to the end. So you're gonna stick around for quite a while. Can we get this up to 35K? Thank you so much for tapping.
That's
Can I have
right. Do what you guys gotta do. Share the live. If you guys hit share, copy link, and if you're gonna share to multiple people, if you share them individually, each individual share counts as one. If you send it in mass to a bunch of people all at once, that counts as one. So if you share it individually, it raises that share number up. So you can do
Oh,
that.
I didn't know that. So I'm gonna change the way I do things then in the future. Um, we're still on. I'm going back now and on our journeys with Christ, right? Growing in the knowledge of Jesus. And you didn't say that the gospel hadn't really changed for the better. Maybe the gospel became more important to you in that you have to defend the gospel, doing apologetics. So it becomes more maybe of a priority to you, being involved in such work, right? But I want to ask you, is there anything about your faith, things that you believed about God that you no longer believe in, or you've changed your mind on things, or just anything in your faith where you've had to uh, metanoia, change your mind, repent, and and see things differently?
Yeah. I'd say how I viewed God has definitely changed. I went from seeing him as like your Gandalf type of figure, old man with the wise beard and all that, to being a strong father, being a brother, being our guide in the faith. I've also I've always had a strong relationship with the Blessed Virgin Mary, of course, given my upbringing and my mother's associations. But I think taking into consideration what it means for Mary to be the mother of God, to be the Theotokos, to be all these things, it really has opened my mind to just how much God has done for us. So I would say that my perspective changed and definitely sharpened. Um, I guess maybe one thing that something that I thought was dogmatic, that I found out was not dogmatic, but you can still hold as a personal as a personal understanding, is I guess this was a hot topic about a year ago, but limbo of the infants. I thought that was dogmatic for a time. I never thought that it was dogmatic, but I did think it was dogmatic for a while.
Let me just say limbo, 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 and we're gonna have a bunch of interesting characters up here in 5 minutes.
Here they come.
Limbo.
Yeah, not that word. Don't start.
Let me unmute here. Limbo. No, I'm just kidding. You go ahead, Joseph. I know we had a fun time discussing that. I was on one of your lives and you were discussing limbo, and it got out of hand, right?
Yeah. Oh,
But it's still a respect. I mean, obviously, a lot of Catholics hold to limbo.
yeah.
Is. So
And again, there's I guess we're talking about it. So limbo, there's limbo, and then there's limbo of the infants, right? So limbo of the infants is the one that's not when we say it's dogma, it's not been defined. It has not been dogmatically defined yet, or if it will ever, we don't know, but it has not been dogmatically defined. So, because it's not dogmatically defined, it's not binding on everyone to believe. So, if you want to believe in limbo of the infants, like I do, you can. If you don't want to, that's also perfectly fine. Believing in limbo of the infants isn't going to raise or lower your chances into getting to heaven. So, really, if that's something that you want to hold to, then you can. If that's something that you don't want to, again, you don't have to. And that's what's beautiful about the Catholic faith. There are certain things that are not dogmatic, and that are they're called pious beliefs. The term is in the word. It's a belief that's obviously pious. So you can hold to these things in your heart, and if it helps you grow deeper in your faith, then you can, and things like that. But the ones that are obviously unquestionable are going to be things that are dogmatic, which are dogmatically defined, and things like that. So
well, I actually appreciate that liberty. Oftentimes maybe Protestants, particularly, think of you as very dogmatic, but you have also liberty. Like you have so many traditions within Catholicism, Byzantine Catholicism. You have, I mean, right? It's a huge religion. What is it now? 1.4 billion Christians? Is it more than that? 1.4.
I think and the numbers, they obviously depend. I would say it's most likely closer to 2 billion, because I believe the last thing that I heard, it was 1.7 billion, but that's not taking into consideration all of the Catholics that are in places where it may not, where they're under persecution, or where it may even be illegal to be Catholic. Like I know in China there is illegal. I believe it's illegal to be Catholic. and there, but yet there is an underground on church that is growing there. Same with North Korea and things like that. So there are places in the world where it is not safe to be Catholic, yet people are still being Catholic. Just like, well, just like for the first 300 years of the church, like it was not safe. So there's that. Someone mentioned in the chat we also reproduce quickly. There's
like
that.
like rabbits. No, I'm kidding. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it depends who you ask. Actually, concerning China, happy to announce that I probably will be going to China to do something significant that I can't talk about right now because it's not permissible. But anyway, that's what we do in our missions. We basically go into places where you're not allowed to go into, and that's why I get myself into troubles like I have in the past. I don't know if you're aware of my security issues, but
Yeah, I think I saw a couple of videos where you had some close calls.
yeah, we were in negotiations with a organization affiliated with Al Qaeda.
Hmm.
That was very interesting. I don't like to talk about it just because I don't know. They follow me on my Facebook, so every now and then I just check my live who's on the live. Um, I'm going to unplug my microphone real quick and plug my phone up to a charger. Let's see if you can still hear me now. Do you still hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so next question to you here. As someone who's been a Christian your whole life, what would you say to someone who's maybe finding himself in a position where he feels spiritual dryness, like where Christianity has just become a routine? Go to church, go back home, next Sunday repeat, and that's like you're just a cultural Christian, right?
Yeah. I would say this is something that I think everyone who grows up Christian that they go through. They go through a period of time where they're just kind of just going through it. I think it's not something that necessarily I would tell them like as an instruction. I would more so ask them the question like, what do you want from God? What do you want out of your faith? Do you just want to just like why are you doing these things? I would more so ask questions like why are you going to church every Sunday? Like what is it about church that is doing that is that? If you truly want to have that relationship with God, then maybe try to take extra steps. Maybe pray more often. Open the good book a little bit more often. Dust off your catechism book and read it. Yeah, just anything you can to stimulate your mind with knowledge of God, because you're never going to run out of things to learn about God. So I think that if you're experiencing dryness, there must be something that you might be lacking in your personal life or in your personal relationship with God that has rendered it stagnant. Maybe you've taken it for granted. Maybe you just, are going through something. But I would always ask the question, say, why are you going to church every Sunday if you're experiencing this dryness? Like, what is it that you want to get out of the church? What is it that you want to get from God and things like that?
Yeah. And personally, what have you done and what have you found to deepen your love for Christ?
Personally, I'm more of like a history and science nerd. So just looking in all the ways that God is involved in science, like looking at just the Big Bang, okay, how that connects with let there be light, things like that. And looking into the history of science, we actually see that a lot of the greatest scientific advancements have been done by people of faith, by Christians, by Catholics. And so that looking into that is like, oh, okay, cool. This idea in science that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm able to blend that with my Catholic faith. I'm standing on the shoulders of those who have come before me. In my own little way, I'm teaching the teachings of the apostles. So we're standing on the shoulders of the apostles, on the shoulders of these giants, as we're spreading the gospel. For other people, it may be the music, so they look into Christian music, the hymns, Catholic hymns. For other people, it may be art, so they look into like Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel, and the history of the art as it relates to God, and how we can use art to deepen our connection with God, and different things. But for me, I'm a huge history and science nerd, so that's my niche. That's how that's how I connect with God.
Yeah, I love nerd stuff. We're all nerds in one sense or the other.
I like that.
What's the hardest part about living out your faith, though?
Oof. The temptation, like wanting to, because obviously we're all still human. There's still things of the world that appeal to us. There's things in the world that probably would make life easier, but obviously because they're ungodly, we stay away from those things. So I think how I navigate the world has become more challenging. I think even when it comes to like romantical relationships, it has become slightly more challenging now that I'm taking it seriously, because you have people who you have sometimes on these dating apps, they don't want they're not Christian, so I don't want to be unequally yoked. And then there's also the idea where they sometimes they this hookup culture is a thing. Now the easiest thing is just hook up and go crazy, especially as someone who was raised and lived all my life in Miami. That temptation is there, but I think navigating the world, whether it be with relationships or just dealing in daily life and how we respond to others, being a Christian definitely has made that more challenging. Because where I would want to just be like, oh, f off, screw you, right? Where I'm like, I just take it and it's like, God bless you.
Someone said so real. Yeah, beautiful. That's great. That's very helpful, man. Okay, the juicy questions here now. And this is the first time I asked this question, but I wanna ask you about our mama, Mary.
Yes.
Um, who is she? Why is she so important? And for, I say low church Protestants, you would probably maybe say even high church Protestants. But I was having a conversation with an Anglican priest. He said, I don't have any problem with saying that she was sinless or ever virgin. So you have high church Protestants who,
Yeah.
have a high view of Mary. So, but for the sake of it, let's say low church Protestants. Why do they disrespect our mama? And where did it go wrong? So, um, the importance of having high Mariology, first of all, and you can walk us through who Mary is and why she is important.
So I'll start with where the uh, where the low church Protestants where they get it wrong, and I don't fault them too much for it. I think it comes from poor ecclesiology and poor understanding of certain terms. Me and my buddy Crunch, we've had this conversation multiple times on and off the air, where it just boils down to terminology. I think what it essentially boils down to is there is a immense fear of falling into idolatry that even showing Mary a significant recognition, it rubs them the wrong way. They're so scared of falling into idolatry, with reason, right? Because we see in the Old Testament, every single time they fell into idolatry, what happened. So I think this fear of falling into idolatry is really what holds them back. And then the misunderstanding
And
of,
by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but by the way, I appreciate that you put it that way, because a lot of times when Protestants come up, for example, I don't know if it's true on your lives. I can't speak up because I've never seen that. But oftentimes I see when Protestants go up on Catholic lives or Orthodox lives, it just becomes hostile right away. Like,
yeah,
what do you mean? It's like, no, like you understand, okay, this is where they're coming from, and it's a genuine concern, and it's coming from a good place. Sometimes I can't say every time. Sometimes people are just idiots and they
yeah,
come out swinging, you know. But there's a good amount of Protestants who just are sincere. They just want to make sure that they follow Christ to the best of their abilities, and you know, and they have genuine questions. So I appreciate that, man. I'm sorry, you can continue.
yeah, no problem. So yeah, there's that, and then there is also the misunderstanding of terms, such as worship, veneration, prayer, and things like that. So when they hear that we pray to Mary, in their head, it's like, okay, every single time they talk about prayer in the Bible, it's like we pray to God. Jesus says that we pray to God. No one gets to the Father except to Him. If you're praying to someone else, that's idolatry. Like I think that's kind of like what goes into their head, and so they equate prayer with worship. And I think the misunderstanding is that yes, worship does involve prayer, but prayer alone does not necessarily involve worship. And I think that's something that may be hard for some people to grasp, because prayer is just a form of communication. It comes from the Latin precari to the French prière, which just means to make a formal request, right? For example, in French, we would say je t'en prie. Prie is pray. Je t'en prie, that would be like, if you please. Or
I can
if,
hear the Creole coming out of you, by the way. You have a Creole twang to it.
yeah. So there's that. So I think when we break down what these words mean, by the way, worship requires deification. So it requires that you view this thing as God. So if you do not view this thing as God, then right off the bat, you can't really worship it. And obviously, there's the aspect of maybe people might not say, oh, money is my God. They may not say that verbally, but they do put the love of money above, going to church or praying, or they even compromise their own integrity for the love of money. This would be putting money, or the love of money at the very least, above God in your head. So this would become a form of worship of money. So when you put something at the same level or above God, that is when something becomes an idol. When you worship an idol is when it's idolatry. So I think with that, when people understand this, it's like, oh, okay, so then Catholics don't worship Mary or the saints. But going back to why is Mary so important, it's because without her saying yes, Jesus would not have come into the world. Now, obviously, you can make the case that maybe God would have chosen another woman, blah, 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 blah. Right, sure. But obviously,
But then you're still stuck with a woman,
yeah,
another woman being chosen.
exactly. So without that yes, we don't have the incarnation. We don't have the redemption, which is why a lot of people, they may hate this, but this is why Catholics refer to Mary as co-redemptrix, because of her role that she played in the redemption story. That she played a part in it. Not that she's the redeemer, but that she did play a part in it, right? So this is why Mary is so important, because of her role as the mother of Jesus. She had to raise him. She had to take care of him. She had to protect him, right? Her and Saint Joseph, obviously. And she literally held God in her. Like, she is biologically linked to the creator of the universe in a way that only can come from that of a mother and a son. So I think this is why, and of course, the term Theotokos, she bore Christ. Because of this role that she plays, this is why we hold her in such high regard.
You know, I was listening to a song here on TikTok. It went viral. I shared it to my wife, who just joined the live, by the way, and kind of had me tearing up. I don't cry that often. I kind of rebuke my tears back into my eyes. I don't, I don't like the sensitive stuff. But this lady was singing. It was a song like as if it was directed to Mary, and it was going over Jesus's life. Like, did you sleep at night, Mary? Did you, you know? And I haven't thought about it that way. You know,
Yeah.
did you count his toes? Did he have, just things like that? How she helped to raise Jesus, and just thinking about that, it's like, wow, I haven't really thought about that. The
Jesus
early
is
stages of Jesus and the motherhood of Mary.
the earliest experience of Jesus as a human is through the lens of Mary. His connection with humanity starts there. So I think people oftentimes forget that. Now, obviously, she's not divine; she's not at the same level as Jesus, but she does deserve her true, her respect. She does deserve her flowers. This is why the Bible tells us that all generations will call her blessed because she is.
You mentioned, okay, low church Protestants now that say, okay, that's worship because of prayer. And I'm not one of them. I don't equate prayer with worship. But what would you say to those who say, well, it's not worship, but it is, as you yourself recognize, hyperdulia? So for those Protestants who say, you're being hyper with this, right? Can you understand where they are coming from when they
Yeah,
when they say that? Like, they think it's just an overemphasis on it, and that's why they can have a little bit of
yeah,
unease with it.
and it gets to a point where a lot of Protestants that I've talked to, they would say, "Oh, why do you?" It's almost like they honestly just truly believe that when we start our prayer, it's like in the name of the mother, the queen, the holy woman, oh Mary, who
Clip that.
so they it's like they think that the center focus of the Catholic faith is Mary, which is going to be far from the case, right? The central focus is going to be Jesus in the Eucharist, but because we have, and I think this is the case for a lot of people, right? Who's like, apart from, well, if you have a healthy relationship, right? Apart from your wife, who's the most important woman in your life? It's going to be your mother, right? So we already hold our own mothers to high regard, right? Like in middle school, elementary school, high school, fighting words was your mother. Like, oh, now we're gonna fight, right? Because you just disrespected my mother. So why not? What makes people think that we wouldn't also apply this to our own mother in heaven? Right, the mother of Jesus. You think that Jesus isn't gonna like be like, hey, so you were talking about my mom? What's up with that? I don't think people think that Jesus isn't gonna have that reaction. Like, yeah, Jesus was human. He had a love for his mother. The Ten Commandments say honor your mother and your father. Like, he definitely honored his mother. So I think that if we're going to be Christ-like, Jesus honored his mother. I mean, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people come on my lives and they see if I have an icon in the background. People just come out swinging, calling me an idol worshiper. They don't even know I'm not Catholic or Orthodox, right? Like, so chill. Like, I did here. Let me do some rage baiting here now, right? So someone's like, "Can you show us your icon?" It's like, and they said, "Do you venerate your icon?" And I did. Yes, I did. And I kissed the hand of Jesus, right? It's like, I can't believe that you kissed an icon. It's like, what? Have you kissed your wife? Have you ever kissed your wife? Does that mean that you worship your wife? Right?
Well, that's different.
It's not. It's like, have you communicated with your wife? Now, yes, okay, I'll make a distinction between invoking the saints and mere communication on the earth, right? But when it comes to kissing something or showing respect, veneration towards something, there's no difference between kissing your wife or kissing a picture. In fact, as a missionary, I travel 165 days a year overseas, and being away for a month, over a month sometimes, and not having your wife, right? So I've started this routine. When I wake up in the morning, I kiss the screen on my phone, and now my wife, my son, and my daughters. I just kiss the screen. Like, is that worship? Is it worship because you have a picture? Right? A picture is not worship. Like, then, if we follow that logic, every profile picture here
An idol.
is an idol, image of an idol, a crucifix, a cross. That's an idol. Like, what else, right? Everything up here, this thing here, this is an idol. The cross, like the cross that Jesus was crucified, is an idol. Like, it's amazing how illogical people can get when they get emotional.
Yeah, and then when you flip it back onto them, like, oh, what about this? Well, and you see that they had to remain consistent. Like, obviously in their head, they're like, okay, I got to be consistent. So how can I finagle my way out of this? I'm like, yeah, and I've heard someone say that it's not an idol. True story. Someone said it's not an idol unless it's in a church, and I'm like, all right, bro, okay, like, oh, okay, you win. I'm just gonna let you have it. You go on ahead.
Yeah. Mariology. Okay. I've coined a few terms. To be deep in history is to cease to be Protestant, Cardinal Newman said, right? I coined the term to be deep in history is to be a confused Christian or confused Protestant. I also coined the term, let's see now if I remember it. High Christology equals high Mariology. Low Christology equals too high Mariology. You probably disagree with that statement, and I don't know, maybe you don't. Maybe there's some truth behind the statement. But I'm working through a lot of things, right? People don't know this, but I've been inquiring Orthodoxy since COVID. Never became Orthodox. So that's probably why people come on my live and say, oh, I was shocked that you're not Orthodox, right? But there's some things that I'm working through and wrestling with. Probably will remain Protestant for the rest of my life, unless, because I'm so stubborn that it probably takes an angel knocking me up the head with a sword or something for me to convert. Just always been stubborn. But Mariology is important because it shapes our understanding of Christ. Mariology and Christology are intertwined. So, can you walk us through that historically, whatever you want to say? Just how Mary is important.
Yeah, I would say Mary is important in relation to Jesus as Eve is important in relation to Adam. From the beginning, right, we had Adam and Eve, and their flesh of flesh. Right? The new Adam, we all agree, is Jesus, obviously, right? So who's the new Eve, right? Who is the flesh of Jesus? Now, if you want to take it from a biological standpoint, or in the way that Adam and Eve is, obviously it's going to be the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? So Mary would be the new Eve. One of the multiple titles of Mary is the undoer of knots. So the knot that Eve tied with her fall from grace, Mary undoes it. And we can see that Mary is so integral to the redemption story of humanity that in the proto-evangelium, the first gospel that we ever hear, is going to be found in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Many people may not know this. It's called the proto-evangelium, where God turns to the serpent and says, after he curses him that you will crawl on your belly for the rest of your life, kind of sucks. he says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He will crush your head, and you will bite at his heel, which means that this seed of the woman is going to be a singular male person. Male. Enmity means to have total opposition with someone. It means to have complete opposition, meaning they're directly opposed. Unfortunately, as much as we want to say, oh yeah, I got enmity with the devil, that's not true. Anytime that we commit a sin, we fall in allegiance with the devil. Now, obviously, when we, as Catholics, when we go to confession and we get our sins forgiven, we come back and have that enmity again. But we're constantly shifting back and forth. But the woman who has pure enmity with the devil would have to be one who is sinless, which goes into why Mary has to be sinless, right? This enmity between the devil and the woman, no sin at all. And the seed of this woman is going to crush the head of the serpent, which is obviously, again, like we know, is Jesus. So we see all the way from the beginning that the woman and the seed, which is Jesus, is already pointed to us all the way in Genesis 3. So if she was already involved in the prophetic word of God himself, then, I mean, what do we expect? Everything, when it comes to every Marian devotion in the Catholic faith and all this, it always points back to Jesus. Mary is always pointing us towards her son. And this goes into the different titles, like the different Marian dogmas, right? The Immaculate Conception, the Assumption, the Queenship of Mary. All of these things are all because of her role as the mother of Jesus Christ, who is our God. So this is literally why Mary is so important, and why the Mariology is so important as well, to help better understand. Now, can you understand Christ without Mariology? Sure. But as we were talking about earlier, growing in our faith, we do run into that, hey, we gotta tap in with Mary. What's going on with Mary? And once we really understand her role in salvation, in the salvation story, we understand, oh, wow. It opens our eyes, and it opens, it's like looking at it from a new perspective, in a way.
Yeah. Mariology is always connected to Christology. I can't speak for the Catholic tradition, but in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, almost every icon that you have, it's Mary and the child, right? Jesus, and her pointing towards Jesus. So the goal of Mariology, and even with the term Theotokos, is connected to the fact of, or is connected to the heresy that Jesus is not fully God and fully man, right?
Yeah.
So it all points to Jesus.
This is why they even why they use the term Theotokos, right? With the Council of Ephesus. Because they rejected the idea of Jesus being fully man. It's like, well, yes, he was fully man. He was also fully God, right? So they kind of had to square that understanding. Is like, okay, what is it? And this is where we obviously, through the deliberations and all that, they come to conclusion, yes, Mary Theotokos. And even a little fun fact for those, you can actually see the origins of the term Theotokos in the Bible. If you look into the Greek of Luke chapter 1, starting at verse 26, where the angel Gabriel comes and say, you'll bear in your womb, right? That word for bear there is obviously tokos, right? And then later on, it talks about how the mother of my Lord, right? Theos, right? So we see the origins of the term Theotokos there. the Lord bearer, the God bearer. Jesus God, Mary bore him in her womb. There you go, Theotokos.
Yeah. God bearer is probably a more accurate translation to Theotokos, although mother of God has become a more
Yes.
used term, which is an okay term. It's a good term. Someone said, "What about the filioque?" Well, I don't want to. You see, there are things that Joseph and I even disagree on, and but I don't feel the need to like say, "Well, I disagree here." This is more, more of an interview, and getting to know each other and discuss Christ. Focus on that which we can agree on over and against our disagreements. Kept this. What does 6'7" mean? My 5-year-old son comes home from daycare or school. Is like, that's 6'7", Dad.
So it's really just a meaningless term that just means whatever.
Oh, okay, whatever. He's like 6'7", Dad. It's like, what? All
Uh,
right,
it,
all
it's
right.
it's a thing. I feel too old.
Yeah, I can't keep up with all these terms. Cook, let him bake. Um, I know what W is now. W. I use that now. As W, so W live.
Uh-huh.
Everybody, let's get this up to 45K. That would be W. Everybody, that would be very based. If you can get it up to 45K, very based. Clip that, everybody. You can just clip that in there. Okay. All right. We talked about Mariology. Now let's get to Christology. And I really have just a few more questions left now. So tap the screens as if your life depends on it. We're still in the juicy questions, but it's getting juicier and juicier as we continue here. Christology. Who is Christ?
Who is Christ? Mm. It's funny because you sent me this, right? How to, and I'm thinking how to answer. Um, from a personal standpoint, Christ is he's my brother. He's my older brother. He is my God. He is, all of that. From a theological standpoint, Christ is the anointed one. He is the Messiah. He is the one to reconcile all mankind back to his Father. Um, and I think that it's very important that people understand what these words mean, because obviously Christ comes from Christos in the Greek, which is the anointed one. But what does it mean to be the anointed one? What is the role of the anointed one? What is he? What is this supposed to do? Christ, again, like I said, he is, and I know people can get triggered by this one, right? He is the one mediator between God and man. And this is because he is both God and man. He is the perfect bridge between human and divine, because he has a foot in both worlds, as we could say.
Okay. You already mentioned the gospel, but if you can give us a summary of the gospel message and why it's good news.
Why it's good news is because God doesn't owe us anything. God doesn't owe us anything. We deserve hell because of the sin that we do. And if you want to argue, oh, we didn't have a choice, that's neither there. The point is, we deserve hell. God does not owe us anything. Yet, because of his love for his creation, he chose to come down as an infant, live out his life, grow up, go through those teen years and all of that, hang out with his friends, experience loss, whether it be the death of his stepfather, Saint Joseph, whether it be the death of Lazarus, whether it be the agony in the garden. He went through every major experience that a human person can go through, except for sin. God of the universe, who owes us nothing, he went through that. He endured all this harsh punishment, though he was innocent, all so that we can have the ability to call God our Father, all for the ability so that we can know him, love him, serve him, be happy with him forever in heaven. And he did not have to do that. He was under no obligation. So he exercised his free will and laid down his life for us lowly, insignificant sinners so that we can be with him in heaven. And this is why it's so good news. It's why it's such good news, because it's the story of redemption. And I think this is something that's permeated all throughout pop culture, this idea of redemption. This is something that's so ingrained in our lives that we all seek for redemption. And the only redemption that matters is the redemption that we find in Jesus Christ, because this is what propels us into an eternal life of love and joy with the creator of the universe. And I think the fact that we're able to essentially reach out and touch God, whether that be in the Eucharist and in prayer, the fact that we're able to do that is such a beautiful message that I think sometimes gets lost.
How does this speak to a person who struggles with sin, shame, maybe fear even? A person that wants Jesus but hasn't come to accept Christ is like a totally ignorant of the Christian faith, totally ignorant of the gospel. He's heard the gospel today and something has sparked an interest in him and he wants to make that connection with Jesus. If you can guide that person through that process, what would you say to him?
I would say the first step in any relationship is getting to know someone, right? We go on our first date. Hey, what's your favorite color, right? So we all have our phones. We live in 2025. The first step, open a Bible. Find, Bible Gateway, Bible Hub, and all these different websites where it has the Bible. I don't really care for the translation for this specific experiment. And just open the Gospel of Matthew and just start there. Or if you want to go deeper, go into the book of Genesis. Usually I like to recommend the first 3 chapters of Genesis and then go to the Gospels. And then once you finish with the book of Acts, then you go back and you finish the rest of the Bible. That's usually my first thing, because you get what happened, right? You get the origin story of what happened. And then you get to, okay, how did it get fixed? Ultimately, how did it get fixed? And then if you want to fill in the gaps of, where he came from, like, who's this David guy? Who's this Moses guy? You can definitely go back and do that. But if we're just starting off and you want to get to know who God is, hear the story of how he created the world and how he came down and made himself known to us.
Man, this is amazing. I'm going to ask you one more question. This is the biggest question. Before we do that, thank you to all the people who are on this live. Please give Joseph a follow and let him know in the comments that you appreciate him. All God's blessings to you, Joseph. Feel free to send gifts his way as well. I just wanted to make a comment, by the way. What was his name? One official narrow road, I think he goes by. He's a Catholic hater. Official the narrow road was telling us here that we are leading people down the broad path by simply talking about Jesus and how to find salvation. I find that amazing, how people can be so blinded by their own judgmentalism that they can't see through what we're actually saying on this live and the Christ that we share and the gospel that we share. That you feel the need when someone shares his love for Jesus and who Jesus is, that you feel the need to say something negative. Makes me wonder if you've even come to discover who Christ is when you can sit there and bash this conversation when all we talk about is Jesus. This makes me wonder, have you actually met Jesus? Um, anyway, I'm sorry, Joseph. It just pisses me off when you talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and someone comes up, it's like, you're leading people down the road. Like, sh- sh-
I just said how beautiful the gospel is. I just talked about how Jesus is the source and summit of the faith. But yes, I'm leading you down the broad path. Okay,
yeah,
doesn't not
I would actually turn that around and say that such a person who critiques this and says, just bashes this, he is the very description of the Pharisees. Like, he is the definition of how Jesus described the Pharisees. That they are actually the ones hindering people from entering the kingdom because
yeah.
they sit there and condemn and judge people. It's what's that behind you there?
That's the so there's a YouTube channel that has a 24/7 exposition of the Eucharist out on YouTube. So I have that
Oh,
literally playing throughout my house like all day long. So even when I'm not home, so that's that helps me.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that helps you. Does that help you focus and keep your mind straight?
Yeah, uh, because it's the first thing I see when I wake up in the literally like so. My bedroom is like right there, and so when I open my bedroom, in the morning to go get ready for work, Jesus is right there. First thing I see. So obviously, and I say my morning prayer. So it definitely helps to focus. And even when I walk into the front door after work, Jesus is there. So it definitely helps me to always remember who like what my end goal is.
Beautiful. All right. Hey, D Strong, just sit down and listen. We're teaching you how to be saved here. So just chill, take it all in.
Us Trinitarians want to be
Yeah, be quiet for a moment. Listen, we're teaching you how to be saved here. Take it all in. Just bask in the anointing here, D Strong. Last question, brother. What is God like?
Mm, what is God like? God is like this this love that is so indescribable. Like if you've ever been think about the moment where you've been either the most in love or the most love that you felt ever in your life, and just multiply that to a magnitude that is basically infinity. This infinite feeling of love is how I would describe the essence of God. Because again, God does not have to do anything. So everything that God does is out of love, which is why the epistles of John says that God is love. God's love is literally what sustains all of existence. So what is God? God is love. And yes, obviously there's the more philosophical and theological answers, omnipresent, omniscient. Yes, of course. In terms of identity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, of course. But love is one of the few things that we truly cannot quantify. It's not something that we can measure. It's borderline not really something that we can even describe. I mean, the Greeks tried. They had 5 words for love: agape, eros, philia. But yeah, when I think of what God is, He is love. He is love. He is mercy. He is everything. He is everything. And I think that's why even the greatest theologians that'll write about him. There's one doctor of the church who a lot of people know. He wrote a lot about Jesus Christ. And one day he was walking down a beach and he saw a child. was digging a hole and trying to put water in it. Now, if you guys have ever been to the beach, you know that you can't really fill a hole without it just, just seeping through the sand. So he goes up to this kid and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to get the ocean into this hole. And he's like, silly kid, you could never do that. And the kid looks up to him and says, well, just like you could never fully understand what God is. And the child just disappears. Um, and and from then on, he stopped writing he stopped writing because he recognized there's that he's barely scratched the surface of what God is. So that is what God is for me. God is someone that I hope to, for the rest of all eternity, to keep learning more and more and more about, keep getting to know, and just have that loving relationship.
Would that be Thomas Aquinas?
Yes. That would be the angelic doctor himself.
Beautiful. Sound like you described divine simplicity.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine it's probably, like I said, I don't give a lot of like fancy answers and things like that. I take things really from a simple approach. Now that being said, do I know the metaphysical terms? Yes. Do I understand them? Yes. But not everyone does. So it's almost, especially in these kind of conversations, it's almost fruitless to be like, oh yes, I believe in the full aspects of the divine essence. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, no one really understands that.